Welcome to episode 49 of the Rescued by Dragons fantasy fiction podcast, Tales of the Brunch Club. My name is Brian Messmer, and I'm not only your storyteller, but the dungeon master behind the homebrew Dungeons & Dragons campaign this adventure is based on. Please join me as I tell the tale of how my players and the dice ruined and improved my perfectly laid plans. But first, a quick recap. In episode 48, the Brunch Club happened upon an abandoned tower, which was now occupied by two giant lizards, which they feared. They thought about sending Sam in to investigate, but Drusilla had another idea. Fredward's monster manual said weasels were immune to the basilisk's gaze. She reached into her bag of tricks, hoping to withdraw a weasel, but got a badger instead. They figured a badger might be close enough. Laura shifted her consciousness into the creature and inspected the tower for herself. Her consciousness sprang back to her body almost immediately as the badger was turned to stone upon entering the tower. The party decided it was not worth the risk and walked further on until they found a new campsite. During the night, they were attacked by two frost trolls. They killed them both, though Sam took heavy damage and shut down temporarily. All of them, except for Diesa, were relieved to learn healing spells did in fact heal Sam the robot. Alora led them further into the mountains. Their path turned into a very steep slope coated with loose scree. They used their rope and pitons to cross the slope safely. Once across, they saw four boulders rise from the ground and emit an eerie, but seemingly harmless, humming noise. And now, episode 49, Diesa's Folly. The Brunch Club took their climbing gear off. They rested for a few minutes and listened to the gentle hum of the floating rocks behind them. Alora double-checked her map, and they continued on their journey. The snow was deeper now, but they continued to make steady progress throughout the day. A snow-packed trail of hoof prints crossing their path was the only sign of other living creatures on the mountain besides them. As night drew near and they scouted for places to camp, Alora noticed a cave in the distance. They trudged through the snow to its entrance. The opening of the cave was roughly the size of a large carriage, and the entrance sloped downward towards the back. Even with their night vision, they couldn't see how far the cave went, but an awful stench emanated from within. Drusilla withdrew a ball of fur from her bag of tricks. When she tossed it to the ground, it transformed into a weasel. Drusilla also conjured dancing lights in the shape of a weasel. Alora transferred her consciousness into the small furry creature and crept carefully into the cave, with Sam following behind her as quietly as he could. The light from the glowing, magic weasel revealed that the cave bent around to the left about 30 feet in from the entrance. Alora and Sam continued around the bend. They walked even more cautiously as the passage began to slope downward and the ground grew frostier and more slippery. After a few more feet, they saw the passage open up into a large cavern. Laura heard a soft, repetitive rumbling noise. They turned around and went back to the mouth of the cave to report what they saw to the rest of the party. They decided to go back in and explore the cave as a group, with Diesa scouting well ahead. The sneaky dwarf lit her hooded lantern and adjusted the opening to a narrow beam. As she worked her way down the sloping passage and into the cavern, her light picked up the brown hue of frozen and dried blood on the walls. She opened the aperture to reveal more of the underground space around her. She scanned the area and noticed a gleaming, pristine greatsword resting atop a pile of worthless-looking armor and organic refuse. Near the pile, Diesa noticed the source of the low rumbling noise. Barely noticeable because of its icy bluish-white fur, a creature lay sleeping. Its fur moved up and down in time with its long breaths. She couldn't tell what kind of creature it was, but it looked very large, even larger than Sam. She eyed the gleaming sword greedily, but decided going back to the rest of the group was the safer move. She turned to go back up the passageway. Her lantern grazed the rock and icy wall, knocking an icicle off. She caught it before it crashed to the ground, but it broke in half in her grasp. The top half tumbled downward and shattered against the icy floor. The creature's breathing halted for a moment, and then resumed its steady snoring. Diesa's feeling of relief was short-lived. At the other side of the cavern, a pile of snow shifted and fell away as a very large creature with the same icy blue fur stood up to a full 18 feet tall. It fixated on her with an immense stare from piercing blue eyes. She gasped in pain as a cold, stabbing feeling permeated her chest. Her feeling of relief was replaced by terror as she found her muscles unresponsive to the commands her brain gave her. She could not run. She could not lift her axe. She could not even open her mouth to scream. She did manage to let out a strained wail through her unopened jaw as the Wendigo trudged toward her with its claws open. Drusilla, Alora, Jory, Salis, and Sam waited anxiously in the cavern for word from Diesa. As the minutes passed by, they looked at each other with increasingly worried expressions. After a few minutes, they heard a faint cry, a low snarl, and heavy footsteps echo up the passage. "I think the scouting mission's over," Jory said. "Maybe we should just leave," Sam suggested in a monotone voice, not concerned about Diesa's face. "Get in there and help her!" Alora shouted at Sam. Heeding her command, Sam trudged down the passage. He entered the cavern just in time for his headlamp to illuminate the Wendigo slashing several large gashes across Diesa's chest and sides. He heard her scream through her paralyzed jaw and fall unconscious. Her blood spread quickly across the frozen ground. "Danger!" Sam shouted. Jory raced into the passageway and dove on his belly to slide into the cavern. As he slid and tumbled past Sam toward the fallen Diesa, he shouted at the Wendigo, "Hey, pick on someone your own size!" The Wendigo looked down toward the defiant halfling. He did not see Pip fly into the cavern and land on Diesa's shoulder. Salis, through Pip, cast a spare the dying spell that stabilized her. The dwarf remained unconscious, but her blood was no longer flowing out of her. Alora ran into the cave as fast as she could without slipping, withdrew her phoenix arrow, and muttered an ensnaring spell and shot at the Wendigo. The arrow caught the beast in the shoulder. Vines, looking strangely out of place on the icy floor, rose up and wrapped around the creature's legs. The Wendigo effortlessly broke the vines. "Get away from her, you fucker!" Drusilla screamed as she slid into the icy passageway, using her shield as a sled. When her shield came to a stop, she spoke an incantation, made a gesture with her arms, and conjured a cloud of ravens that swirled around the Wendigo. The swarming birds raked and bit at the beast with the claws in their beaks. Sam moved up to Alora. "Danger!" he shouted again. He raised two of his forearms. His metal fist flew off the end of his arms, shot through the cloud of ravens, and pummeled the Wendigo. The Wendigo growled and trudged toward Drusilla. He fixed on her with his freezing gaze, paralyzing her as well. He bared his razor-sharp claws and ripped through her armor and flesh with a swipe of each hand. As the cleric fell into unconsciousness, she toppled sideways off of her shield. Her blood spread in a pool around her as the spectral ravens disappeared. Jory closed the distance between him and the Wendigo. He leapt up and punched it several times, hoping to hit and disable the nerves in the creature's back and abdomen. He did not incapacitate the beast as he would have hoped, but he was able to do further damage. He snuck between its legs and scrambled out of reach before the beast could take a swing at him with his deadly claws. Salis muttered a spell, and a chromatic orb shot from her hands. An orange sphere of fire slammed into the Wendigo. It screamed as the flames engulfed it. The smell of burning fur and flesh filled the cavern. On his master's command, Pip flew across the cave and landed on Drusilla's shredded body. Salis stabilized the cleric with another spare the dying spell through Pip, as Alora damaged the Wendigo with two more well-placed arrows. Sam jumped up, skis expanding from his metal feet. He slid toward the fallen cleric, reuniting his arms with his fired fists on the way. He came to a stop between Drusilla and the Wendigo. His fist fired out. One of them shot through the chest of the beast and exploded out the back. The Wendigo's heart was clutched in its hand. The beast toppled over. The smaller sleeping Wendigo woke up. It blinked in confusion at the battle happening in front of him. When it saw its parent's body fall to the ground with blood oozing out of a hole in its chest, it howled with rage. Though it was a young Wendigo, it was still taller than Sam when it stood up. It ran towards Sam. The robot punched it twice. Jory ran up beside the robot and hit the Wendigo with a flurry of several blows. His punches had more effect on the younger Wendigo than they had on the adult one. He was able to connect with one of the creature's key points, disrupting its energy flow and stunning it. Salas finished the creature off with a fireball. The Brunch Club surveyed the aftermath of the battle. Sam healed Drusilla, bringing her back to consciousness. He looked at the unconscious, but clearly breathing Diesa. "She is dead. We should leave," he said in a cold, metallic voice. "Sam!" Drusilla shouted. "Don't be mean!" The cleric knelt beside Diesa, touched her shoulder, and brought the dwarf back to consciousness with a Cure Wounds spell. The group caught their breath before clearing an area to make camp for the night. Alora spent most of the night skinning the younger Wendigo, resting only for 4 hours of restful meditation. The pristine greatsword was too heavy for any of them to wield well, so they gave it to Sam. The rest of the night passed quietly in the cave. Alora stuffed the Wendigo pelt into the bag of holding, and they continued on their journey. As they progressed toward the northwestern peak where they hoped to find the touch point to the Feywild, the snow got deeper. Later in the day, the snow was too deep for Salas and Jory to keep up with the others. Sam offered to carry them. "It reminds me of when Vorjon used to carry me," Salas said as Sam ferried them through the snow. Later in the day, they saw another trail of hoof marks cross their path. This time, they saw in the distance a herd of gray-brown, shaggy creatures that looked like some sort of oxen and boar hybrid with long, thick hair. They sniffed the air as the group crossed their path, but paid them no mind. As they moved on from the herd, Alora looked to the distant peaks. She noticed a large bird. Even from the great distance, she could tell it was a rock. A very large bird Fredwood had warned them was in this area. She pointed it out to the others. "Keep an eye out for those," Alora told them. "They could sweep down and carry any of us away." Salas and Jory instinctively held on to Sam a little tighter. As their eyes were fixed to the sky, they noticed wisps of smoke rising into the air in front of them. They slowed down and walked very carefully. They kept low and used the mounds of snow to conceal themselves. When they approached within 200 feet of the smoke, they saw its source. Directly on their path, 4 humanoid creatures crouched around a fire. They wore furs, had distinct tattoos decorating their exposed skin of their arms, and were as large as the younger Wendigo they had just slain. "They look like hill giants," Alora whispered. "Except for the 2 heads," said Drusilla. "Yeah, except for that," agreed Alora. "What now?" Diesa asked, gripping her axe tightly. Alora looked around her. She scanned the tree lines and terrain. She pointed to a very steep hill that ended in a level plateau. "If we can climb up there, maybe we can find a new path around them." "I can climb that," Sam said. The 4-armed mechanical man easily ascended the steep hill. He threw down a rope and pulled them up one by one. They all stood on the snow-covered plateau. They listened for any signs that the 2-headed giants may have seen them. They heard nothing. In fact, their surroundings seemed eerily silent. They scanned the sky, looking for the rock. To their relief, they saw it emerge from behind one of the very distant peaks. Movement on the side of a cliff nearer to them caught Alora's attention. She was able to make out a shape clinging to a cliff face, about 150 feet in the distance. It was a large, 12-legged lizard. Alora didn't move. She recognized this beast from the book Fredward had given them. It was a Behir, a creature that could breathe lightning and was originally bred to hunt and kill dragons. They locked eyes, and it blinked at her. The silence around them was shattered by the Behir's terrifying roar tearing through the mountains. It leapt out from the cliff face and landed in the snow in front of them. "Danger!" Sam shouted. Our tale will continue in episode 50. Episode 49 was written by Dominic White, Bethany Powers, and myself, Brian Messmer. The audio recording of our D&D game session that inspired this episode will be available on our podcast channel this Thursday under the name Brunch Club Live. Additional role-playing contributions to the story by Bethany Powers, who plays Diesa, J.P. Black, who plays Drusilla, Liz Richard, who plays Alora, Anna Flemke, who plays Salas, Billy Chase, who plays Sam, and Dominic White, who plays Jory. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by sharing it with your friends and rating and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. We really appreciate it. More information about Rescued by Dragons and ways to support and follow us can be found at rescuedbydragons.com. Thank you for listening, and please join me next week to see what my players' choices and the roll of the dice have in store. As you're sneaking through,
Sneak.
you try and squeeze through, and you're a little too thick. And one of the icicles kind of cracks off, and you catch it before it hits the ground, and then a little bit of it snaps and still shatters, and then not too loud. And then the small creature there doesn't seem to stir, but that snow pile.
What snow pile?
Oh,
That snow pile.
no!
You see a very similar. The face looks similar to what was on this, but it's a much larger head that kind of like lifts up and shakes some of the snow that accumulated on it off. And you see a very, very large. It doesn't look like the mini.
I know, but I haven't seen you use this one yet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
If it weren't.
It lifts its head up and gives you a heart attack. 10, 20, 30. Yes. And he looks directly at
A literal heart attack?
No. But your blood is now pumping, and you realize that this thing has now seen you. Can you please roll initiative?
Oh, fuck!
Just Diesa.
No.
Is it like a mama and
Next
it's hot?
question. Did anything just happen that would be loud enough for everyone else to hear?
No.
No.
It really was not that loud. Like a 14 is not a bad stealth check. It's not fantastic, but
Is there anything we can do at this point in time?
you guys have no idea.
But is there, like, in character, like, can Salas be like, guys, I really think I should have sent Pip in with Diesa?
Nope.
It's
been like maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's cool.
What is your initiative?
She just sent him with her on her shoulder. I didn't think of that.
Should have sent a Rocky Talkie. Should have
send another animal.
We didn't do a lot of things we should
Didn't
do.
do anything. Send another basically cheating. Because like, if we
I know.
didn't do
Definitely
it,
cheating.
yeah.
Remember, Diesa, one of your actions is dashing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But it's also
I'm
icy.
aware
It's also
of that right now.
So.
Yelling your head off is a free action.
I'm gonna start hot water for more.
For morning.
I'm listening though.
So it uses half of its movement to stand up.
Is it that actual size?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
Can it fit out of the cave?
Pissing.
Yeah, seriously.
The entrances were not small.
Okay.
They were like
Big boy
15
size?
foot- yeah,
Okay.
they were big. So it's.
I mean, he's like, what, 12 feet tall?
About, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's a little taller than that.
Okay, 15.
15 or 20.
Alright.
And he moves 5, 10, 15, 20. We'll go there, I think.
The way your character's arms are up and it looks terrified is so perfect. Help.
Yeah.
So, Diesa,
Yeah.
can you make me a Constitution saving throw?
Oh my god.
As it stares you down, you just feel like cold fear grip your entire body.
God, that's
I'm
gonna
gonna
be
die.
giant.
It is.
Is that by any chance
The mini
an
is a
effect
frost giant.
spell?
Oh, but
An
that's
area
not the
effect?
actual creature?
Correct. No, it's not.
I just want to use it.
And it's
I'm using a Constitution saving throw.
yes.
Go 12.
Oh boy. We didn't bless her. We didn't give her aid. We didn't do
Oh, sorry.
any of
I
our.
just tossed it off the...
We didn't give her the stone.
We
We were-
split the damn party.
We were off our game.
Jesus.
I didn't ask.
I blame the flu.
She gonna die?
Don't tempt me.
You take
Oh.
I take it I can't use Uncanny Dodge in this situation?
no.
There's hot water if anyone wants it. For tea.
Water.
You take 16 points of ice damage, cold damage, half down to 8. Yep.
Alright.
And you are paralyzed.
Oh. Could she have screamed out or anything in pain?
She cannot.
She was kind of frozen in fear when she locked eyes.
Well, shit.
Is it half because of our protection?
From her
against cold?
resistance.
Yeah.
From her. It is now your turn. I would let you, without moving your jaw, because it's clenched shut in fear, I'd let you try and make a noise of some sort.
I would very much like to try to make a loud noise.
Okay.
Wait, what do I have on my first? I mean, there's.
But you
definitely-
can't move.
Here.
I know. I'm just trying to get creative.
I probably shouldn't.
I should have carried the bell.
So we hear.
What do I do?
You can try and make a noise without moving.
Like physically, or do I roll for it?
No, physically. Yeah. You guys hear silence after like 5-6 minutes, and then you do hear loud like, and then you just hear Diesa go, "Oh!" echoing through the cave. You may all roll initiative.
I think stealthing's over.
You will start at the next round. So.
Okay.
I think she's fine.
Wow.